So we're not jumping in right away to our relaxation. We're easing in. So ease yourself into your pretzel shape and look at your body for a minute. Look at your feet, look at your legs, and then start to lift your gaze up. Keep your spine tall, roll your shoulders back. Let your hands rest on the knees and take a breath. And see already if you feel just a little bit different. Take one more full breath in and full breath out. All right. When you're ready, come to child's pose. See if you've already begun a little bit of a shift from that place where you don't want to move too much to the place where now the breath is already beginning to feel as if it's coming, it's like bringing you back to life. I want you to stretch your arms forward in this child's pose. And I want you to reach through the hands and really reach and lengthen through the fingertips. You know, we're not like reaching to gain anything other than to just simply let the body feel what it's like to be in an expansion mode. Because our day can be contracting, whether it's work related or personal related, right? You can just, especially at this time of night, we can just be tired. And so without really trying to change our state too much at first, what we really are kind of looking for is to come into a place of balance. Take just a few more breaths. It might feel really nice to let the mouth open on the exhale. It's like open the mouth to let the whatever it is you're releasing come out even more, like with more force, if you will. So it's like all out. Good. Take another big full breath in. Open up the mouth and let it all out. Use this inhale as a preparation. And then exhale, bring yourself to downward facing dog. You might really like that rhythm you create it in through the nose, out through the mouth. Go ahead and soften your neck first. And you know, it might be some movement you're bringing, something that feels more easeful to the neck. And then I want you to start to just shift your hips a little right and a little left. Now, the knees are slightly bent, and next time you shift your hips a little right, stretch the left arm forward and creep your fingertips forward the way we were in child's pose a moment ago. Keep your hips kind of shifting right. You can come back to center and then let your hips shift left and really creep the right hand and fingertips further forward. And come back to center, come back to your knees, and come into child's pose with your hands by your feet. And let the weight of the arms soften to the floor. Let the head of the arm bone just kind of sink deeper in towards the mat. Feel a lightness between the lungs and your palms. Both are open and both are receiving. Spread the breath as you inhale across the back body, across the shoulder blades. Good, and then go ahead and take your hands and place them right outside the knees and walk your knees a little closer together. And come back into that child's pose. Put your hands like on your low back, interlace them so they're going to kind of rest on the sacrum area. And put your forehead on the mat. Good, take a breath here. And then I want you to slowly begin to lift your hips up off your heels. You're going to shift your forehead a tiny bit forward and then come to the crown of the head.
So if you'd like, reach your arms up and over. Get your shoulders out of the ears. Sometimes we put a little too much weight on the crown of the head. So draw the shoulders actively up out of the ears. Your spine is somewhere between like a child feeling and a cat feeling. So we're in the 2222 portal. There's such an intense energy here. You know, the numerology behind number 2 is amplified now, and the 2s come in multiples. Good. Take one more breath and slowly release yourself down, and then stretch your arms back where you might slide them along the mat. Feel rib cage all the way to palms elongating, and then find yourself back in your down dog. And take your left hand and bring it through and grab the outside of the right ankle. And take a few breaths. And you know, you might, if you feel like your feet are too close, maybe kind of walk them a little wider. Let your head and neck, you might say a yes with the head and neck. You know, let the weight here be like, usually I would like ask you to let the root of the tongue soften down. But here you can just let the tongue kind of rest and let it kind of fall. It usually doesn't have this position to fall and relax into. So let that happen for just one more moment here. Full breath in and out. And release that left hand and bring the right arm through. And just know we've started with a lot of forward folds here. They're super calming and cooling. But yet we're kind of like magnifying that with the experience of getting a lot of length through the legs, through the arms, through the torso. Just take another few breaths here. Let the head and neck relax. Even though we're using the shoulders actively to help us here, see if you can soften through that joint. Good. Go ahead and release that right hand down and come to all fours. So from all fours, you know, normally we start with the knees, hips width, bring the knees together and take your hands wider. So I brought my knees to touch, and then that didn't go quite right. So I let them come a little wider apart. Go ahead and let your hips start to drop to the left. And then stretch that right arm forward. Your left elbow can bend as much as you'd like. This is a nice way to get on the side seam of the hip there. I want you to think about, so tent your right hand. You're giving like a fingerprint. Your palm is way up. It's like elevated. So your arm bone is elevated. So in that case, then your armpit hollows, but your shoulder blade can soften down. So this will start to kind of stimulate the heart a little bit. Good. Release, come back. You might take the knees wide only for a moment to release through the hips, and then take your knees together-ish, you know, your liking, and let the hips drop to the left. Mine don't drop too far. I'm sorry, your hips are dropping right. My apologies. Hips drop right. And walk that left hand forward. You're bowing down a little bit here. So you're shifting the weight of the hips right. The left arm is elongating from the upper mid rib cage. Press down into the finger pad so your palm lifts, and your palm and your armpit are twinning. And let your shoulder blade have some weight to it. All right, release and come back. And then from here, so back to all fours. Take a nice breath in, and as you exhale, come back to down dog. See how your upper body feels. Maybe it feels slightly different. I want you to inhale, lift your heels really, really high. And then as you exhale, just drop the heels back down and get more length through the calves. Let the torso fall towards the legs. Inhale, heels lift really, really high. Exhale, drop them down. Now, one more time, inhale, lift your heels really, really high. And as you exhale, feel, as you drop the heels down, feel the torso coming a little more towards the legs. Good. And then one foot at a time, I want you to lift your leg, flex your foot, one foot at a time, start walking forward. As you're walking, the toes are flexed and reaching towards the heels. So walking the feet towards the hands. Once you arrive, find a half lift, bend your knees, shift your hips a little side to side. And then take your feet wider and then wider still until you come down into a squat. And so you're just looking for like a lot of length through the spine here. And use your elbows along the inner thighs. That little bit of pressure can also help you elongate the spine. Want this to be slightly more active here. Even the breath is slightly more active and engaged. Take one more inhale. Good, and then as you exhale, hands to the floor, begin to lift your hips. Walk your feet a little closer. Bend your knees a lot so the torso kind of meets the upper thighs. And then fold and clasp opposite elbows. And let yourself hang. Think of the forearms, the way you've kind of clasped elbows, the forearms as a little bit of a weight to help lengthen out the low back. Good, and then release your hands, walk your feet towards each other, find a half lift, inhale, maybe come to your fingertips even, then exhale, fold. Good. This inhale is going to lengthen and prepare your spine. Let the exhale bring you back to down dog. I'm sorry I didn't mention a block. If you happen to have a block and you'd like it, it's a great time to grab one. It would have been a great time to grab one before we started. And so my apologies. You don't need one. It's just a nice option. Okay, so from down dog, lift your heels, soften your knees, and then step your right foot forward. Pivot your back foot. We're rising through warrior two to come to triangle pose. I'm going to take that block and put it by my front foot. So finding warrior two is just like a nice starting point. And then it's interesting that it's a preference really. Some people enjoy warrior two, triangle with like a warrior two foot. I like the warrior one foot, so I kind of angle my back foot in. Stretch your front leg straight, start to hinge. Hang on to some of those abdominals, so use that. And then hand to block or hand to shin. And let's start with the classic variation of just the left arm up. I want you to feel like deeply into the stretch that you receive when you press the left foot down into the floor. And energetically, what's happening for you here? Good. Take a couple full deep breaths right here in Trikonasana. And then slowly release. Hand to floor. Come back to down dog. Relax the head and neck. So from down dog, we'll come into Trikonasana other side. So left foot is forward. I'm taking my block, putting it on the big toe side of the foot, coming up. Good. So you start in your warrior two, and then pivot your back foot according to what feels good to you. Hinge, stay long. Think of the length you have through the long bones of the legs and the arms, and see if you can kind of let the spine have that same type of elongation. Anchor down through the back foot. Classic arm position to begin. We'll revisit triangle, and you can take that arm parallel to the ear later if you'd like. Good. One more breath. And then release. Find yourself back in down dog. And then almost as if down dog, like a triangle was just too much. We have to come back to child's pose. So when you come back to child's pose, don't commit yourself yet until you bring the forearms to the floor, bring your palms together, shift your hips back. See if you can get the elbows close, maybe touching. And then bend the elbows and let the sides of the forehead, so let the temples kind of rest in the biceps. I usually will like snuggle my head through so it's like pretty deep into the biceps. Breathe into the elongation you get through the triceps here. One more breath. Good, and then slowly release the hands. Inhale, looking forward. Come back to all fours. And again, just to like tap into some of the energy of the heart, stretch your arms forward. Keep your hips and your knees in line. Wiggle your hands even further forward. Lift your arm bones, hollow your armpits like a Frito scoop, and drop your chest. Maybe your forehead comes down. If your forehead is down and you're lifting the arm bones up, there's a little bit of work, and then you're going to reach a point where you just have to kind of let the work go and just sink the weight of the chest down. Don't jam up the neck, so broaden out through the upper back, broaden through the shoulders. Okay, inhale, come on up. And then come back to all fours. And from here, I want you to look at your thumbnails and bring your forearms the same distance as your thumbnails were. Interlace your hands, tuck a pinky under, tuck your toes, breathe in. A nice buoyant, full breath in. And then exhale, come to Dolphin Pose. Relax your head and neck, walk your feet in a little more. And then walk your feet in even more so you've got quite a nice amount of weight over the shoulder girdle. Keep your spine, if you can, think about keeping it straight line up and down, crown to tail. If you want that little bit of a stretch, reach your right leg up and shift your weight even a little more forward so you're really on the ball of the left foot. Good, release that right leg down. Inhale, left leg lifts. Good, release it down. Drop your knees. And come back to sit. So Vajrasana. Come to sit, glutes on heels. Take your hands together behind you and lift them up as one. And just breathe here. Drop your shoulders out of your ears. Good, last breath. Release. Okay, coming to down dog. Take your time, come on in. And then we're coming to a wide-legged forward fold. So I'm going to step my right foot forward, lift my hips, pivot, and come to a wide-legged fold. So take a breath here, full breath in. And then as you exhale, let the body hinge forward. Yogi's choice, you can do peace fingers around your big toe. You can clasp hands behind. You can also get like the hands under the pinky toe edge of the foot. Lots of options. So you choose. You could do a couple different ones. Good. So kind of grounding down through the feet. Like the inner ankles zip up, like you have a little zipper, you're zipping up from inner ankles to inner thighs. Outer thighs to outer ankles, press down. Whether you have your hands clasped or wherever you are, or when you still draw your shoulders out away from your ears. Good, release your hands. Inhale, half lift. And then just walk your hands to frame your front foot. Now your front foot, I want you to let that be the front foot in a warrior two. So back foot pivots to warrior two and come up. So use that same type of like energy, the pressing down of the feet. When you press your feet down in the floor, think about there's this like corresponding lengthening inner groins out. Hug the muscle to the bone of the back leg. Hug the muscle to the bone of the arms. Good, and then inhale up, left hand grabs right wrist. Reverse and just get that stretch through the lower side waist. And back up. Good, and then we're actually just gonna switch sides, so long, wide-legged stance, and then just switch. Now we've got the other foot forward. So you, in that switch, you might have shortened your stance a little bit. Maybe when you rise, you lengthen it out a little bit. Think about your feet first, so press them down, stretch the inner groins or groins, inner thighs, and reach your arms up. I want you to take, like I'm a big fan of all the fingers separated nice and wide, but this time I just want you to have all your fingers together. Want your arms be really active. And then inhale, arms are up, right hand grabs left wrist and reverse. Good, release back. All 10 toes reach towards the long edge of your mat. Hands on hips for a moment. Like, what I want you to do is feel like you can get taller by engaging. So engage the muscles, pull the spine tall, hands on hips fold, come halfway. Don't go all the way. Now you're gonna have to really engage through the legs, engage through the low belly, and reach your arms out in this airplane position. Crown of head in line with spine. Draw the breath in deeply through the lungs, but at the same time, let it be like a balanced breath. This is challenging position, so you want the breath to have like this slower, deeper quality. One more breath in. Good, exhale, put your right hand down and just reach your left arm up. From the center of the chest, stretch your arms open. I want you to still draw the shoulders out of the ears. Good. Release that hand down and switch. So anchor. And the hand that's on the floor, that shoulder is probably going to want to come forward a little bit. See if you can incorporate it back into the body, and then use the quads to hug in. Hug the muscle in, where it's slightly revolving through the rib cage. Good, release. Both hands are down. I want you to take your left hand to the outer edge of the left foot, the right hand to the outer edge of the left foot, and then bend your right knee and sink really deeply into that. Good, release. Bring your hands back to neutral, and then walk both hands over. If your hands are comfortably come to the foot, just put them on the floor in front of the foot. So get the hands under that side or the blade of the foot and really sink deep into that bent left leg. It's almost like you've got your hands under your foot, but your foot trying to trap your hands and press down so you can really lean. Good, release. And then come back to that warrior two position. So the right foot is forward. Come back to warrior two, right leg forward. Arrange your back foot however you want for triangle. Stretch your front leg straight. And this time as you come in, feel free to block or no block. And if you want to really extend that top arm overhead, extend it long. One more breath. Good. Inhale, come up. Try to keep your front leg straight-ish, maybe just a little softness to the knee, and reverse your triangle. Good. Inhale back to your warrior two. And then switching sides. So all 10 toes are forward. Open up. Now your left foot becomes the forward foot in warrior two. Just to get kind of like the positioning here. And then your back foot, however you like it, for Trikonasana. I want you to feel grounded and stable. And from there, you feel like you can stretch and elongate. Good. Come up, reverse your triangle. It's okay if you have a little softness to that front knee. Good. And then slowly, all 10 toes are forward, hands are on hips. And take a breath in and out here. Good. And then just pivot. So pivot to the front edge of your mat, hands down. Now from here, we're coming to warrior one. So I just kind of walked my front foot out a little bit, just a tiny bit wider. Bring the back foot to the warrior one stance and come on up. I'm creeping my front toes, my right toes forward. I want a longer stance so I can sink my hips. Now, that might feel good to you. Maybe you have a slightly shorter stance. Slightly pivot the rib cage a little bit so you have a more neutral place. If you can interlace all the fingers but the index and cross your thumbs over each other, do that. Good. One last breath. Exhale, release. So from here, hop your back foot in just a little bit. Stretch your front leg straight and fold. Triangle forward fold. Now from here, maybe you folded, but now on your next inhale, I want you to lift and lengthen the spine. Crown of head, tail, one long line. And then as you fold, think about still keeping that breastbone stretching forward. Head and neck really relaxed, but your legs have to be engaged, right? It's like the balance is there with the legs, the ease on the exhale. Rebend your front knee. You might have to wiggle the back foot back a little and come back up to warrior one. Okay. Pivot the feet so you're like wide-legged, not forward fold, just wide-legged, back to where that position we've been in. And we're coming to warrior one on the other side. So what that is requiring you to do is make that pivot first with the hips, and then you're going to have to do that realigning with your feet. I'm widening, I'm realigning. My sacrum doesn't feel great coming in this way, so I have to give myself a minute to figure that out and then come in. So I want you to take time. All the fingers interlaced, but the index, that's your lightning rod reaching up, like receiving all that divine guidance. Activate through the back leg. Release. Hop your back foot in enough that the foot's on the floor. And this side for me, I've got a real like bum hamstring. So I'm not stretching my leg any more straight than this. Regardless of where you are, I want you to still lift and lengthen your spine. And exhale, soften. Let's do that again. Nice full inhale. And exhale. Good. We're coming back to warrior one, so you're probably gonna have to kick that back foot back, step it back a little bit so you have the nice long stance. Come back up. Make all your adjustments. If you're still too short, walk your front toes forward. Good. And then exhale, release. We're pivoting open to that wide-legged stance. Take a full breath. And then pivot right back to the front of your mat. Downward facing dog. Okay. From your down dog, lift your heels, then your knees, and bring your feet up to your hands and come to a seat. So when you come to your seat, we're just going to kind of replicate all that length that we've been creating. If you happen to have your block handy and you wanted, great. What we're going to do is like make the foot even further away with the block, if that's your jam. Right leg long, left knee bent, foot on inner thigh. So from here, take a moment, take a nice big full breath in. And as you exhale, fold, now maybe the hands kind of come like right outside the legs, stay on the floor. Maybe you're going to take your block in front of your foot. Good, take a full breath in. And exhale, fold. Let's just dive into this forward fold for a few moments. Let it give you what it needs. Let the breath be that bridge there. Good. On an inhale, come back. Let's just come right to the other side. So left leg is long, right knee bent, foot along inner thigh. Take a moment, and when you're ready, you're folding. You know, if you had two blocks, you could put forearms on blocks. Maybe hand comes to a block in front of the foot. You're choosing. Give yourself permission to really feel this posture where you'd like to feel it. So if you are much more yang, you're probably feeling a big stretch in the hamstring. If it's a little more of a yin approach, you might feel it a little bit more in the low back. Good. Inhale, come on up. And just put that block to the side for a moment. And bring both feet together. Now, Baddha Konasana, I just do this first, and then I kind of like remember, oh, I should tell you that I'm doing it. I put my hands behind me, lift up, scoot myself forward, but then there's like that weird little tuck under, so then one side, then the other. I let the sit bones come up and go back. Good. Hands wrapped around the tops of the feet. Breathe in, tall spine. Exhale, fold. I love that moment when you can like dive a little deeper into the pose. So, and when I get there, what I like to do is split my feet. So I kind of split the balls of the feet together. I split the toes open and I get my elbows inside there. Bring the hands in prayer and just let the body soften down. I feel like this class is like an RX, like a prescription, right? Prescription for like, if you're tired, if you had a long day, if you just need a little TLC, if you want to do a physical asana practice, but you don't have a lot of energy. Good, release. Come on back up, use the hands to guide the knees in, and then stretch your legs long. Do that little rock side to side again, like ground down through the sit bones. And then you could choose, again, if you want the block in front of the feet, use it. Inhale, arms are up. You might even interlace the hands and really press the palms up. And then exhale, fold. Now, hands can come wherever you like them. Even though we're taking a forward fold, which is a much more like contemplative inner journey, I still want you to lift and elongate on your inhale, at least for the first one or two breaths. and then soften all the way into whatever feels good. Good. On an inhale, come on up. Roll your shoulders open and back and put your hands behind you. If you like Parsvattanasana, which is like a reverse plank, and that feels good in your body, then go ahead and lift your hips, right? But if you can lift your hips and like kind of reach the toes towards the floor. But if this is good for you right now, stay right here. Okay. If you're in Parsvattanasana, release down. If you're more in that seated fish, release. So we're going to stay with that like uplifting feeling. So I want you to just shift forward as much as you need to come onto your backs. So come onto your back, keep your block handy. We'll use it in a little bit. So come onto your backs and plant your feet. Lift your hips, realign. And for a moment, I want you to walk your feet a little wider, let your knees knock, and just put your hands on your belly. Just feel like soft, supple, inviting, right? Letting the hip joints be this welcoming place for the thigh bones to rest in. Okay. Walk your feet back to like hip, I wouldn't say sit bone distance apart. Reach your arms long by your side, really long, and clasp the sides of your mat. Now, I told you to walk your feet in, which I did, but once I really elongated my arms and I felt like I had to walk my feet a little wider. So feel free to do that. Start to lift your hips up, come into bridge. You can keep clasping the edges of your mat. It doesn't have to be a tight clasp. I want you to free your chin up. Now you can stay like that, or go ahead, clasp your hands together, get the shoulders further underneath you to puff up your chest. You can take your feet. I took my feet really wide. I gave myself that freedom. You know, you can choose where you'd like them to be. Balance out the work with that like a smoother breath, so there's not a whole lot of efforting. Let's take 3 more breaths. Last breath. Good. First, release your hands and then release the hips down. Get the body out from underneath you. Give it some space. Just pause. So coming into fish, lift your butt, get your hands underneath. My thumbnails touch, but my elbows are super wide. So take a big breath in. And then as you exhale, lift your feet off the floor and stretch your legs forward and let that action help lift your torso up. And then shimmy your elbows closer together. And so now in that case, now your fingertips are probably reaching straight forward. You feel like, can't even see your hands underneath. Puff up your chest. You don't have to go anywhere else. You could like stay right here, really neutral head and neck. Or keep lifting the chest. Let the head be heavy, drop back. And then let it drop all the way back so the crown of the head comes down. If you have a variation that you love in fish pose, take it. This is so good for the thyroid, for the throat chakra. One more full breath. And when you're ready, slowly. I'm coming up first to come out. And then however you're coming out, we're coming all the way back down. And then keep your block handy. For a moment, just take your block and let it rest on your belly. Let your feet come a little wider, let your knees knock, let the block rest on your belly if you have it. If not, just let your hands rest on your belly. And tidy up the body here. What I mean by that is like, look at the places where you're holding on that you don't have to. Do a little clean sweep. If you're holding on through the shoulders, soften them. If you're holding on through the low back, sacrum, soften. Let a big breath come in and out. Good. If you're using a block, take your block, lift your hips, get your block under your sacrum. If you don't have a block, no problem. We're coming to legs up, so block or no block, legs are up. If you don't have a block, but you have a wall close by, go for it. Option to do goalpost arms if you want. Let the bony structure of the hips be really heavy on your block. So if you want to close your eyes here. Good. Now blink your eyes open just really softly, just take in a little bit of light, and go ahead and let the legs come nice and wide. Option, you could, do your hands along inner thighs. Sometimes I'll start there just to get a little more opening. And then if you want to, you can clasp opposite elbows overhead, but only do that if your legs feel comfortable in this position without that little bit of support of the hands. Good. If you have the elbows clasped, release. Get the hands on the outside of the thighs to press your legs back up. Now, if you take plow, like usually we come in from shoulder stance, then go ahead and just let the legs begin to come back. I usually press my hands into the floor to get myself all the way back, and then use one hand to remove that block. You can also keep the block there and use it as a little bit of a lever to help the hips lift. Your feet don't have to come to the floor. If you don't have your block, you can choose to bend your elbows and put your hands on your low back just for a little support, or you can keep your arms long. This too is good for the thyroid, a lot of compression here. If you're in plow, don't let your legs be off like a spaghetti noodle. Activate the legs like spaghetti that hasn't been put into the pot yet. So they're like nice and straight and strong. Options, you can interlace your hands like we do in bridge, walk the shoulders a little closer together. Don't let your chin be too clingy to your chest. Like give your chest that little bit of freedom. Okay. Option to just stay in legs up, or like come back to legs up, or come into shoulder stance. Ideal. I've had some assist here in shoulder stance where someone comes and kind of like lifts your legs up, and it's a kind of a cool feeling. And what they're trying to do is get the ankles in line with the hips, and ideally in line with your shoulder girdle or your chest. So you could just kind of think about that, like one long line here. Just take a few moments. You can point and flex the feet a little bit, whatever you'd like. So we kind of did that in reverse, right? We came into plow first and then shoulder stance, just something a little different. Good. Take one more breath. And then when you come out, usually I'll let my legs start to fall back towards my head just a bit so that I can free up my arms. And when you use your arms, your abdominals, slowly lower the legs, let your hips come down. Once your sacrum comes to the floor, just hug your knees to your chest and rock a little bit side to side. And then come to a point of stillness for a moment, just with the body, and kind of feel into the breath and just see where you are energy wise, how you feel. You kind of brought yourself to this like more restored, balanced place. Might even have just a little bit more energy after this sequence to do whatever it is that you need to do. Okay, release that tight hold and bring the soles of the feet together. Let the knees come wide apart. I'm actually just going to use my block as a pillow. It's just a little bit taller than I'd like, but it feels good. So Supta Baddha, option for block as a pillow as long as it's comfortable. Hands on body or whatever you like. Again, do like a tiny bit of housekeeping or rearranging. Get the shoulders out of the ears, wiggle a little bit so nothing is tucked under or uncomfortable. Just opening yourself up to the energy that's there for you now. You might even feel it just on the borders of the skin, maybe just slightly out away from the body. And then on an inhale, make sure it's like a nice big inhale. Go ahead, and if you have a block as a pillow, go ahead and just really gently release it. And stretch the legs one at a time, nice and long. Let the legs be wide. Maybe flop the feet a couple times in and out. Arms by your sides. Just let yourself rest for a few moments here in Shavasana. When you're ready, you can stretch the body however you'd like. Take your time. Finding a side to roll to. And coming back to a seat. See how you might feel like a totally different person than when you began. And just honor yourself in that journey you took for just a moment by settling in and letting the eyes close. With your eyes closed, just take one hand to the heart and put the other hand right on top of that. And let your hands join in prayer. Let's share one final breath. Take a nice big full breath in through the nose. Pause and hold. Open the mouth and let it go. Namaste.